Hello everybody and welcome. Today I'm going to talk about using your PowerMac G5 as your daily driver in 2022. I've been using this machine now for around a month as my daily driver, meaning that it covers 90+% of my computing needs. So I'm going to show you now how this is done. And really, you can save these machines from the landfill and have a wonderful time. As you can see here, we are not in 2022, but I'm going to upload this video in January, so just for the clarification. Instead of filming the screen, I would like to have shown you basically a direct capture, right? But Nouveau has some sort of bug that tries to negotiate DRM, you know, this HDMI encryption, I forgot how it is called. It keeps trying to negotiate it, it fails, and Nouveau has some bugs. So it litters my logs with error messages, and it's not really pleasant. So I tend to use it on VGA, but as you can see, the image is clear and crisp. As always, you need to see before I show anything else that we're actually using a G5. So I'm going to open the terminal here, and if we do screen fetch, you see that I'm running basically SID, on kernel 5.10. It's up for 9 days, so it's very stable. I have more than 2000 packages installed, and I'm using WindowMaker. It's a dual core single CPU G5, so it's a late 2005 model with PCI Express. I have 6 gigs of RAM. And the GPU is, let me try neofetch instead. Better. So you see I'm on bookworm SID, so it's unstable. It's a 11,2 PowerMac, so the latest one. And it's a GeForce 6600 LE. And I'm using now 1.3 gigs of memory out of 6 gigs. If you look here, down, it shows that I'm using 95% of memory, but that's mostly cached data, and I'm only hitting 3% of swaps, so the system is actually very snappy. To make a bit of comments on hardware here, so you have two options of PowerMacs, basically, roughly. You have the AGP models and the PCI Express models, and that's mostly where the platform differs. Oh, and also there is one here that had a low-cost model that had 1/3 of system bus speed instead of half. I would stay away from these because they are much slower. They are more like iMacs. And if you pick an AGP model, you're gonna have option to use AMD graphics. I think you could get some sort of ATI PCI Express that would work. I'm not sure. Whereas the late 2005 models have only NVIDIA. And the problem with that is Nouveau has some bugs. It's very functional, but sometimes you need to restart X to clear the bugs out. But I can use it for many hours without any issues. The most important part of using a computer these days is internet. And you can see that most well-designed web pages work very well. I'm scrolling Ars Technica up and down, and as you can see, it goes okay. Right, it loads the next pages and so on. Not many issues, right? I'm running Arctic Fox, and this is a release maintained by a few people that offers most compatibility and performance fixes, and everything just really loads okay. So if I open a new web page, I'm connected to wired network. I have 300 megabits of bandwidth, and it works pretty fine. You see, it loads on demand. If I go to the comments load immediately, and there is no problem at all. So if I go to another page I visit often, so let's check osnews.com. And the page loads fine. I can browse some bookmarked pages here. So let's see You can go to the RX forums. It also loads very well. We can go to some WordPress page. So let's go to Tablospace, for example. You can see the CPU usage remains quite good. You know, it spikes up once the page loads, it goes down. Scrolling down here, you see it's all okay. There's a new article, I need to check it on later. If I open the image loads fine. The gallery browses well. Let's see another page. Let's see, for example, the BBC. It's a bit slower. As you can see, the CPU is pegged up, and this happens with some of these large portals. For example, YouTube takes 1 minute loading and is probably compiling some, I don't know, maybe WebAssembly or JavaScript, but once it loads, it goes okay. Yeah, so for example, as a demonstration here, I'm gonna do a new tab and I'm gonna let YouTube load. And while YouTube loads, I will go and show you something else, and you're gonna see how the CPU stays saturated, but once it loads, it will go very fine. And in the meantime, I will show you the rest of how I have this experience set. I will minimize it for now. If you look here on the right, I have organized the programs I use the most here on the right hand corner. So we have on the top, this is basically the WindowMaker preferences. I don't even know why I have this still docked, because of course that's something you don't access often, right? Termit is my terminal emulator choice for WindowMaker. It also works very well, right? This seems to be GTK, the widgets and the widgets and the menus, but it loads very nicely. The performance is good. Arctic Fox is already running, and we have a version of Firefox maintained by the Power Progress Foundation, I think, that works better with some other pages, but has some endianness issues with the images you see, so it's somehow screwing up the colors, and this is like an endianness problem with I think Nuvo. I'm not very sure, but some pages don't load fine on Arctic Fox, and then I usually go to Firefox. Although I think in this version, in this build, TLS support is a bit lacking. Next we have Thunderbolt, and Thunderbolt will trigger some issues with Nuvo. Like you see, you can see some corruption here and there, but it works perfectly fine once you load it. All the functionality is available, and there are no issues at all. Next one then will be GIMP. GIMP works surprisingly well. I'm gonna leave it loaded and minimized so you can see how it would be, you know, your daily usage computer. And I'm gonna actually manipulate 45 megapixel images from my D850 so you have an idea of the performance. As you can see, it loads very fast, and this machine does not have an SSD. Yeah? I'm using spinning disks and it's a SATA 1 bus, but everything works perfectly fine. So I'm gonna do here new, gonna create a new object. All the tools work, and of course depending on the tool here you have a worse or better performance, but all the functions are operational. It doesn't crash, it doesn't give me graphics corruption. I've had no problems whatsoever so far. As you can see here, even the icon here retains the thumbnail of the image I have loaded. Next one on our list is VLC, and it's also pretty current version 3.0.16, and this is what I use to play YouTube videos. YouTube sometimes skips a frame or two, and I think it's more something related to the network stack or bandwidth. It's like it skips a few frames. It was not happening before, but the newest version got a bit worse. But whatever offline video that we have runs 1080p perfectly fine. Well, a bit on the choice of hardware. I had the G5 quad. If you follow me for a while, you'll know. I sold it when I had some depression, and I was looking for the dual core for a while. And what we have is the Quad G5 has two 2.5 dual core processors that run, I think, at 150 watts each. So it's 300 watts of thermal potential, and this is why you have like the liquid cooling system. The fans spin up very often. It's a very loud machine, and you have on top of that issues maintaining the liquid cooling system. I had a spare radiator, and I could replace it, even though I never dared to open the system and try to maintain it myself. But I think the computer went to a home where it's going to be better taken care of. And the dual core has a TDP of 100 watts, if I'm not mistaken. And I've never seen it pulling more than 60 during my use. So the machine is just next to us here. You don't hear it whatsoever. And it's basically very quiet, and you have the reliability advantage of not having to maintain the liquid cooling system. So that would be the option in my opinion, even though others would say that better to get an AGP model for better graphics performance, or go to the quad. Another advantage on this setup is, for example, you get USB 3 support if you install a card, yeah, so let's see here. Yeah, as you can see here, I saw the Thunderbolt card, although it crashes the computer when I connect anything, but the USB card works fine. If you have PCI Express, you also could run a 10 gigabit NIC, and it should work fine, even though I never tried, I don't have the need for it. So this is what you have to keep in mind if you're choosing between a PCIe model and a dual processor AGP one. Let's get the VLC out of the way and get to the desktop experience. I chose WindowMaker because Wayland is quite heavy and graphics intensive and causes problems with Nouveau. If you have an AGP Mac with ATI graphics, you should be fine there. I like how clean WindowMaker is, how light, and I hardly ever have any issues. I've been recording here for a while, and as you can see, everything goes okay. I configure on the bottom here a list of widgets. So the first one here is WindowMaker shutdown, and if you launch it, you can turn your computer off, right? The second one is just a calendar. If you double click, there's no functionality. Then here you have the weather forecast, and it's current working fine, yeah, so this is for Prague Airport. Here you have the CPU frequency and whether it's running on performance or power savings mode. I could not get yet Power Now Daemon to Power On Daemon to work fine. I only have a PowerPC 32-bit and I didn't manage to build it from the source. Once I get it running, the machine should step down to 1 GHz when idle, and then this will change here. CPU meters for core 01 and also memory usage. Network interface performance stats. And this is some sort of focus widget that I haven't been using, but I intend to, that when you click, basically it means that you are in a task here. So the total time used working on something and the current task here, and you can use it to know when to take a break or not. Yeah, so let's suppose you're coding or doing some research, you can well know that it is time to stop. I keep here a calculator, it's very handy. And then of course each program that you load is shown here. YouTube should be back up, and it's logging into my account. So let's suppose we can go here, copy link location, you open VLC, and then you open network stream, you paste, and you play. And it works quite well. As you can see, I'm running the full stream and it's running perfectly fine. If we go here to tools and let's see, codec information, statistics. Yeah, so this corruption was not happening before, and I'm not sure if the data is getting stale on the network level or if it's a problem with the decoder. I'm hoping this gets fixed soon, but 2 weeks ago or so I was not having any problems whatsoever to watch videos. Yeah, you see some problem with the keyframes perhaps, or the buffer stops loading and then it has to rebuffer. But in general, if this doesn't get fixed, I'll just reverse to a previous version, yeah, or I can go to use it in the browser, although it should maybe also be loading. You'll see, I'm pulling down at 720p, and this is how it works. When you have offline videos, I don't have any now, it works flawlessly. So if you download a movie and you want to watch it, it goes fine. And as you can see, the CPU usage remains low, and you could, for example, resize this, right, and move it to the side, and keep working on something else. Now let's have a look on the list of software I have installed. WindowMaker will automatically separate the applications in categories, right? So in audio you get a mixer that for some reason is not showing the controls. Here. So I can adjust the volume up and down, and I could and should probably add it to my dock so it's easier to manage, yeah. Then you get audio and video. So there is a CD Ripper and it works pretty well. So when you get a CD, you can look it up in the database and you can rip it to MP3. Works perfectly fine, no issues. If you have a CD collection, you can catalog it on your computer. I don't know how to say the name of this one, Syntheyun, and I'm not sure I remember what it's supposed to do. But it will load, yeah, so let's again go to neofetch. Okay, it doesn't want to load, so let's go to the next one. We already have Kdenlive. What does it do? Also don't remember. So this is a multi-track audio recording workstation. I don't have the proper hardware to try it. I do have a Firewire card, and I could probably use the optical. No, this is actually for editing video. So this one, you get the graphics corruption from Nouveau that I was talking about. You see? But if you have MIDI graphics, I've heard it works perfectly fine, yeah? Although, of course, I cannot vouch for the performance, and I want to start editing videos on this, but I do get stuck because, well, of the glitches, yeah. But let's see, that they have money for a Talos. This should be fully supported and work fine. If you have AGP G5, let me know. This should be that's a multi-track recording application or not. I don't know what it's supposed to do, but it works. You have the option as well. This is the multi-track recording application. As you can see again, it loads fine. And this one actually have tested recording a few things. You get no graphics corruption on Nouveau, and well, you probably would be in Logic if you are using such a G5, because you get again the option for like using your recording cards and so on. But there you go. If you're going to go full Linux open source, you have it here. And if you go to settings, you see that you get really a ton of functionality. Not sure how many professionals be using this, but if you want to have as a hobby, perhaps it would work fine. Development. I didn't like any of these two programs. I don't know what they're supposed to do, so I'll skip them. In education, let's go to add-on. But I will, while add-on loads, if it will, I will show you Biogenesis. It's a very fun program that I started playing now. You basically can control the evolution of these creatures, give the whole environment more or less oxygen, right? Force them to reproduce, study their DNA, and somehow play God. You hardly ever get some Nouveau issues like blinking, but in any case, if you want, you can also disable OpenGL, yeah? I have to disable this FB object because it was causing some corruption, yeah? But it seems to be a really fun game, and as you can see, it's Java and hasn't seen updates in 10 years, but it's really something fun. I have a saved game here and I play this sometimes. It's been cool to play God. The next one, as you can see, I have a spinning disk and everything opens and closes immediately unless the application is crappy. Critterding, what is this supposed to do? Some programs don't do anything, and I'm not sure if the program, if the issue is related to PowerPC, you see it's a beta 12, or if the program really has issues. Let's just kill it and go to the next, so this video is not so long. Geogebra. Yeah, you can, it's something like, perhaps like Mathematica. And I know why I use this. I was using this when I'm writing some basic OpenGL code in C. With this I can easily create the shapes and see where I need to place my points, you see? So it's the same format that OpenGL uses, the coordinates. So I can, it's easier to write the code, yeah. Although not sure I have a 3D option. It works, yeah. If you need this, you know who you are. Next one here, games. So Abe Amazing Adventure is a side-scrolling kind of thing. Billiard GL is a billiard game. grid rock, I don't remember what it's supposed to look like. Doesn't load. Then you have all these penguin games, and they all work well. So you get all the basic fun that you need to have on your computer, right? And you can pass time between, you know, your turns of, you know, serious work. And yeah, it's a collection of card and puzzle games. They work perfectly fine. Next we get SuperTuxKart. Not sure if it's gonna work fine or not. I think it had issues with Nuvo. Let's see if I'm gonna screw my demo if this is going to work. Oh yeah, so this is Nuvo, corrupting textures and so on, so no go. And you see, you get this issue now where basically the system got fully corrupted. And what I'm gonna do is, you can get out. This usually fixes the problem partially. And if not, I can restart X. But yeah, I should not be using the programs that I know will crash, but I want to give you an honest review, yeah. And remember, if you have AGP Radians, this should not be a problem at all. I just ran this small script here that loads my widgets in the order that I want. Before, when I was trying to do it, just adding them to WindowMaker, it was not loading fine. Like widgets that would load first would go to a different spot, and I want them in this sequence. Yeah, so this is why I launch it manually. All right, back to where we were. Graphics. Right, Blender is not loading, I don't know why. Fracplanet is for creating fractals. You get a Nuvo issue here, but on AGP it goes fine on the radians. Then Fyre is pretty cool. It's CPU bound, but you can create like these geometric shapes that are very interesting based on certain parameters, right? So I actually use it to create some very nice wallpapers. So for example, I suppose this, and then you do a red background and a black background. Adjust the gamma here. It can look very nice, yeah. And I was even using this Fyre output as textures for creating some basic 3D models on my Octane. Then what we have? GNU I'm gonna show later. Magic works fine. Inkscape, I don't know what it's supposed to do. I knew one day, but it took me a while to get around to record this video. Not launching, so let's go to next. Krita. Krita is pretty nice. I had to do some adjustments to the settings, right, to disable some OpenGL features, but it's a nice and fantastic drawing program that I think it's getting more and more popular. Oh, there is Inkscape there loading behind. Maybe it had to load some libraries that don't load automatically when you launch WindowMaker. Let's wait for Krita to load and go one by one. So if you have like a tablet or something, with Krita you can draw. Oh, this is slow to move around. So I want to find a way to disable dragging the window with the content, because I want to resize this, and I don't know why people think that this is a good idea, so resizing is fine, but dragging is awful. Alright, so where were we? We create a new document, right? And you get so basically you get a bunch of brushes here. So for example, you get a tricolor thing. You see there's some corruption due to Nouveau, and it was fine every time, but now that I want to show you it's happening, and again, I'm very confident it's gonna perform better on the Radians. If you have a G5 like this, you could try and let me know. But it's a drawing application and you can do really beautiful things with it if you have the skill, right? And again, you are running a very new version, maybe the newest. And if you go for system information, then you see you're running Nouveau. And you see PowerPC 64 big endian. So I subscribe to the package reporting service when I install, just to make sure that people see that yes, I use a big endian PowerPC computer. Inkscape is, I think it's something like Adobe Illustrator, and now we are getting Nouveau complaining here. Okay, just give me a new document at once, I don't want to restart. X again. So you see, yeah, it's like Illustrator. The icons are very pretty, the interface is very pleasant. And you get to draw whatever you want, 2D shapes, 3D shapes, move them around, rearrange. If you need this, you know who you are, but rest assured that it does run well on your G5 and you can have a great time with it. Again, so we go to about Inkscape, and we are on version 1.1.1 2021. Now I'm going to show a bit the performance when running GIMP. Note here that I'll be running my files from my D850 at 45 megapixels, and even my 2 sockets 12 core Power Mac Pro sweats at them. When I'm editing, for example, 17 or 15 or 14, I don't remember now, megapixels from my old D7000, the performance is completely fine and I have no issues whatsoever. It also depends, right? If you select a very large tool, you're manipulating a lot of pixels at the same time, but if you do smaller adjustments, the program performs much better. Later on, I'm going to show the performance of the raw converter.